Welcome to Money and Markets. I am Charles Boji, your host. Now, today we have quite interesting subjects ranging from fish farming to ways how you can optimize performance of your staff as a business leader. Of course, to the world of science, where we're looking at an electronic microscope, which is set to transform the world of research, of course, best at Makerere University. Again, welcome. Now, we've had discussions about how farming is the silver bullet to transform this country's economy, especially in tough times like these, conditioned by the coronavirus or the pandemic. Now, it is one thing to actually have natural advantages, which give you a competitive and comparative advantage over others in this space. And also another thing to know the right thing to do to optimize such advantages. And today, we're trying to look at how we can make agriculture work and indeed deliver the transformation that everyone is talking about.
Happy East Africa started on the basis of agriculture. We were looking at agriculture as being a very cool segment that could actually benefit Ugandans, but was not being given the TLC, the tender loving care that was needed. So with Hamwe, we came in and looked at some of the challenges that were there. The challenges of lack of records, challenges of the quality, challenges of accessibility to good quality seed or availability of the good quality seed, challenges of marketing the produce that we bring out. You can't believe it that we produce a lot and we waste a lot because of the quality. We can't export it. The quality was a problem. And then challenges of tracing where this coffee is coming, traceability. So when Hamwe came in, we thought we should come up with a solution, innovate around agriculture value chain and see how do we tackle the entire value chain, the stakeholders, off-takers, the processors, the farmers, and incorporate them. Traceability is the fact that you know where the food is coming from, the quality of seed that has been input, and everything around the chain. I've planted this seed from, let's say, pearl seeds, or narrow, and then what comes out of it. And then from there up to where I eat. Most Ugandans will eat a tomato and they don't know the ingredients that have gone through it. I can assure you that some of us are surviving by God's nature, because we don't know, we can't trace. I was at a restaurant in Nairobi, and on the placard of the menu, they said Angus beef from Embu farmers. Such a simple thing, I ate my beef nicely. Now, for you to get a good market, because we are talking markets here, people need to know what has gone into this production. People need to know that the cattle, the beef, the milk I'm taking was actually immunized, or the chicken was got these many ingredients in it, and then I make an informed choice. Now, with international markets, they need to have that traceability. They need to know where the coffee is coming from because of the quality, and by the way, you even earn more value for it. Now,
There's a premium.
Yes, it's a premium price if they know where your coffee is coming from. And because, let me give you an example of Ugandan tea. Ugandan tea gets to Mombasa and they get the least price, and it's good tea, because we live here it's not traced, it's not graded nicely, it's not. But the tea in other countries, by the time it reaches, even landlocked countries like us, and I'm not going to name countries, by the time it gets to Mombasa, there's a standard price for that tea because it's already counted as premium tea. Yeah, so the traceability in agriculture value chain is very, very key. So it's funny, but we said we are going to use IT to do this, and we approached several agencies in the country, NGOs, government agencies, and I'm proud of my Minister of ICT they looked at it and said, we will support this. Yeah, we actually won our first award from Minister of ICT for coming up with a solution, and Minister of ICT has actually supported us to implement it. And the pilot was done. So we were building a farmer management system, and this system, first of all, profiles the farmer, their acreage, the value chain they are working in, and then also the problems they are facing. Then when we build this system, we add off-takers, we add the suppliers, and now you see we are having an eye on the supplier. So the supplier is going to be able to give you seed. Now, the farmers individually in their marketplace, yeah, they don't have proper seed. But if I aggregate farmers and I say that I'm working with Okoro Coffee, or I'm working with the NECPA, yeah, and there are 3,000 farmers, all profiled, each has 1 acre, it's 3,000 acres, and I tell a supplier, I need 3,000 tons of seed. I've aggregated demand for the farmer, and the supplier or an off-taker is looking at this. So the seed will be available, because right now the supplier knows I have ready market for my seed. The off-taker knows with the 3,000 acres, I will get 300 tons. Yeah, well, one of the things that is actually needed is having a ground level sanitization of the records down there, last mile. I've been having discussions with different people in Ministry of Agriculture, and I'm saying, yes, everybody says we need maybe 1 million extension workers, but we don't. What we need is actually for every sub-county to know what their value chain is. Profile the farmers in that area. Support people like Hamwe to profile the farmers in that area. Even just a little bit of financial, because it's more like a social aspect. Hamwe makes money at the end of it with all the data that has been collected. But if that was actually voluntary, we get out and say, every sub-county, every parish should have their value chains. I should be able to Google and say, Bulambuli, what is the value chain that actually grows there? It's sunflower, it's pumpkin, and then, you know, then we see. There's demand. Recently, I got an order for soya bean, and someone wanted 600 tons, 600,000 tons, and do you know how easy it was for me to aggregate that? Because I know the cooperatives that actually have these bulked up in their warehouses. But I can assure you, and I'm sorry to say this, I don't know whether anyone in Ministry of Agriculture actually could have taken that business on. If someone says that we want this much beef in Uganda, is the Ugandan government even aware of who the beef farmers are? I want our government to take an initiative and profile maize farmers, beef farmers. I like the campaigns we've been doing for AIDS, coronavirus. Why aren't we having a campaign for aflatoxins, post-harvest handling? Why aren't we having this? The same coffer where we get money to do these other campaigns is the same one. If we're saying that it is actually the bread and butter for this country, why am I not seeing campaigns on radio?
Now, last year we saw fairly good performance among commercial banks, despite the fact that the economy had been ravaged by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this year, it seems to be a really tough one, even for the lenders, because we've already heard that they're struggling to actually lend money to the public. And of course, when banks don't lend, they don't make money. We try to find out why this is the case, and indeed how the financial sector can wriggle itself out of this tough spot. The shrinking GDP growth, low tax revenue, and an expanding debt position are among the factors poised to reduce Uganda's attractiveness to global lenders at a time when the country needs resources to get itself out of a tough economic spot where it has been pushed by the COVID pandemic. Uganda's GDP growth has come down from highs of 6% to around 3% today, the lowest since 1985, according to the World Bank figures. This has been conditioned by the slowdown in economic activity due to the impact of COVID and associated standard operating procedures. The biggest casualty in all this has been demand, as the public's purchasing power and thereof ability to acquire goods and services remains weak. According to observers, the ripple from this state of affairs has now caught up with commercial banks, like many other sectors of the economy, as they remain stuck with over 2.6 trillion shillings, which they haven't been able to lend due to low demand. A number of traders still have unsold stock, partly because of the lockdown that heavily impacted the country's major business hubs and households' purchasing power, while some of the country's vibrant sectors, such as the hospitality industry and education, remain largely inactive. Banks are now keenly looking at the country's securities market, currently laced with good yields and good activity. Experts, however, warn that while the high yields offered by government on both the treasury bills and bonds may be good for off-takers, including banks, they will further complicate the country's already worrying debt situation. Uganda's debt has expanded to 56.9 trillion from 35.3 trillion shillings in 2017, representing a 70% jump. To this end, global credit rating company Fitch Ratings has downgraded the country's credit rating to negative from stable. The implication of this is that the country will have to contend with higher borrowing costs because of the perceived possibility of default. While in the past, governments were perceived to be good borrowers that never defaulted, recent developments have pointed to this possibility. And indeed, today, governments, including that of Argentina and Zambia, have already defaulted on their debt servicing obligations. Experts are now pointing to the need for the country to focus on sectors where it enjoys historic advantages, such as agriculture, to resuscitate performance. At the release of the recent World Bank Economic Outlook for Uganda, agro-industrialization and more extension services are among areas highlighted for government to pursue as it seeks to earn more from its agricultural products, such as coffee. Today, a number of agricultural commodity value chains, such as coffee, remain dominated by multinational players at a higher level, who also tend to reap the biggest despite expanding production. There are also calls for better debt utilization, reduction of government recurrent expenditure, extension of support packages to the private sector, which has been hit hard by COVID, and expansion of the country's COVID vaccine program to get the economy back on track. Well, it's time now to take a very short commercial break. Man and Markets continues after this break.